followers of Akhenaton.
Yeah.
We can now date back directly to Akhenaton's period and his actions and his expulsion from Egypt, many of the secret society symbols. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it again, that what this really means is this. If there was not a being called Akhenaton, and if he was not expelled from Egypt, then we would not have Judeo-Christianity, and we would not have any of the secret societies, at least not in the form that we have them now. So this person, this central character, where there's been a great smokescreen and a sort of like a Hollywood-esque cover-up of this individual to make him this incredible, heroic character, is done because it's very, very, very important to the world elite that they're not in any way threatened if we just say, oh, well, it looks like they've got some bizarre Egyptian symbolism there, and we spent 50 years working it out. They're not threatened by that at all. No. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put the symbolism there in the first place.
Exactly.
If they think we were going to work it out. But the time has come where we are working it out, and through my years and years of research, and from reading all of the other conspiratorial books and the great experts in these fields, and looking at their work and saying, no, that's not quite correct. This individual is halfway to the truth, but this is, they're leaving some major pieces out here.
Yeah.
So my work is constantly updated, as you say, especially on the website, because I'm constantly filling in the blanks that I see the errors in other people's research.
Yeah.
I don't just want to keep that to myself. I know there's other people out there who can be spared that kind of research. So as the book is being prepared, the book is called The Irish Origins of Civilization,
yeah.
I want to make sure that in the meantime, there's people have, access to the key information so we can get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I, start letting the book be released, because that is not my major concern to make money from my book. My major concern is to get the information out so people become aware, because we are in very dangerous times.
Yeah.
We're in the end times of something. We're counting down to the 2012 end date, which we mentioned before.
Yeah.
And there's going to be severe changes along the way in the next couple of years. So people need to have the facts. They need to have the facts about what's going on internally, and they need to have the facts about the external world and the governments and the kind of control edifices that are there. And the reason why they need to know that is because I always maintain that this war, no matter how many other forms it takes, I don't care if it takes military action in Iraq, or bombing from the sky, or vaccinations, or the Federal Reserve, or the pulling up of the ladder from the middle class, and the loss of the jobs and the outsourcing, and all of these attacks upon human beings.
Yeah.
That is yes, those are identifiable things. But I never lose track of the fact that the real war is a war on consciousness. The ultimate goal of the secret societies and Big Brother and these Atonist forces that I'm talking about, these Luciferian forces, is to attack human consciousness, which is what they have done. The rest is just incidental. The rest just is symptoms of the main attack. And therefore the counterattack must be also an awareness of the motives of your rivals. It's not a physical attack in which you go and use, weapons or what. What you do is you come into intellectual understanding of why would these people be doing this?
Yeah, yes.
My Atlantis book was to point this out. It's part of the journey to point this out. It was an attempt to look at their most ancient motives. So in any war, I want to make this absolutely fundamentally clear, because in the future, if they're going to forget this, then when things get even hotter tomorrow, people are going to start reacting in very negative ways. So they need to be reminded constantly. There's a constant footnote on every page of this discovery towards this truth.
Yeah.
And that is that this is primarily an intellectual war, in which it is through knowing about your rival why they do the things that they do. Do you remember in the old war days, the general used to compulsively have a picture of his opposite general on his table or on the wall? This is a well-known military aphorism.
Sure.
That Montgomery would have the picture of Rommel and vice versa, and this has been done all the way down the line. It's exactly that. This is understood by the top strategists in the world. We are losing the war, Henrik, against the forces of darkness on this planet because we are not doing this. We have mistaken. We're getting so caught up in the body bags and and the casualties, because they're in your face and they're gory and they're horrible and they're terrible. And countries losing their sovereignty and the World Bank and all of these other things.
Yeah.
And we realize there's open attacks. And yet almost nothing can be done about it. It's because we have a gap, a lack of understanding about the nature of our adversary, what prompts them to do this kind of work, and so forth and so on. So the work with this dark side of the sun is to show you what these people believe, why these secret societies use the symbol of the rising sun. Why are they using this Egyptian symbolism? What is their connection to Egypt?
Yeah.
And so forth. What is the new world order, really, from their point of view?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And to tie to back to Akhenaton or Aton here. What you said that he was expelled from Egypt.
No.
Do we know what happened there?
Yes, it's an incredible story. It's really an incredible story. It very much the story involves the Levites, or the people that are now referring to the Jews. The word Jew is not used by people today who are true Jews. That's the first thing to understand. These are just religious Jews who follow the Torah by conversion. They're like you and I going to convert to Shintoism, for instance, or Baha'i religion.
Yeah.
So the modern Jews are just people who have converted to a religion in the past, or their forefathers did. And there's people today even converting to Judaism. That does not mean that they have a connection, bloodline-wise or ethnic-wise or racially, to the people that are referred to in the Bible as the Jews. And the rabbis know this. And it's a long story long-winded story to go into explaining all the nuances of this.
Of course.
So just, people can come onto my website and look that up and study the great the question of the Jews and who are the Jews. It's a very interesting story.
It is.
And in your own country, you have Yuri Lina, who's gone blue in the face speaking about all of this.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the story is out of the bag there.
Yeah.
Concerning the modern Jews. But so when we refer to the Jews of the ancient world, we've got to make sure that we understand there's no connection to modern religious Jews. The connection that has been an artificial one that has been funded and created artificially. It doesn't really exist. So who were these original Jews then? Who were these original Iberu, the Hebrew, and the original Israelites? These, by the way, are Celtic terms, but let's leave that aside. That I'll be dealing with in the Irish Origins book.
Yeah.
Just now to specifically answer your question, the Iberu, the Israelites, are a group of people who invaded Egypt in the 13th dynasty. And they were known as the Hyksos pharaohs. So what this has been, what this has exposed is that there were Israelite pharaohs of Egypt. The very thing we're not told in the Bible. In the Bible, they want to tell us that Abraham and Joseph and Moses and these individuals were just wandering sort of vagabonds and ne'er-do-wells. Just happened to end up one day on the steps of the steps of the Pharaoh's house and suddenly be promoted to positions of enormous authority. This is a complete and utter nonsense. What we have the cover-up story later on, and this is because they wanted to downplay the role of Egypt in the lives of the Jews, is that the Jews themselves were pharaohs, and they invaded in about the 13th dynasty. And even though they were expelled at the beginning of the 18th dynasty, the ones who were expelled, Henrik, were more of the lower class rabble. It's like the elites of the Hyksos dynasty, who were pharaohs, who were courtiers, who were mayors and viziers and high priests of the temples. They were not expelled. These people were very much infused into the elite. It's like today. It's like you have the upper class.
Yeah.
It's like you have an invading group of people, which has happened many times. And then that group becomes, an elite. The sons and daughters go on to become an elite within the movement. We even have that with Native American Indians now. We have that in different ethnic cultures where they start off as one thing, and then, later on they get promoted to high places. And this is a normal function of life. The Irish coming to America and so on, suddenly becoming the mayors, you see, and the district attorneys and what have you. So this is what happened with the Hyksos, that even though they were despised deeply, they were deeply, deeply despised. They were considered almost alien and very evil. However, because they existed for such a long period of time, and they occupied Heliopolis, Amarna, Giza, and the Delta regions, which is northern Egypt, where the Nile comes to the Mediterranean. They occupied all of those areas, and were also they were high priests of the sun at Heliopolis, which is the city of the sun, On. And I'm going into this because it's very important, because it ties into Akhenaton, because Akhenaton was chosen to be pharaoh by these Hyksos worshippers of the sun that ruled the solar cult in Heliopolis. So it's not a question of the pharaoh appointing priests, it's the question of the priests appointing a certain pharaoh. This was not the case all the time in Egypt, but it was the case a lot of the time, where the priests were the real power, and they decided who was spiritual enough and who the god that they worshipped was appointing. So these, what has been kept from us is that the Israelites, the original Israelites that are portrayed in all of these glossy Hollywood movies and all of these books on the Bible and all of this nonsense that people have just bought into, these original people were not just some shepherd, rag-wearing, skin-wearing, roaming shepherds being sort of guided through Canaan by Jehovah. No. This was a mighty pharaonic dynasty in Egypt called the Hyksos dynasty, who, even though a mass of them were expurged during the beginning of the 18th dynasty, the elites were well infused into Egyptian culture. They were not of Egyptian blood, and many of their wives married into the top pharaonic positions, okay? So the top pharaoh, the pharaohs and many of their top mayors and viziers and courtiers married in with Hyksos women, and vice versa. And this mixed blood question is also addressed in my book. It's very, very important that the fall of Egypt is understood as also a racial mixture of the blood is very important here.
Yeah.
But leaving that aside for now, the idea was that these sun kings, these sun priests, who were worshipping the light, a very special kind of light, which I refer to as the dark side of light.
Yeah.
Christians might refer to as Luciferianism, and they're not far wrong if they use that term. These individuals appointed Akhenaton, this insane, basically megalomaniac, utterly self-possessed, narcissistic, decrepit, and absolutely destructive, despotic individual.
Yeah.
I mean, this person was basically, in modern parlance, would have been a psychotic, or what we would call a religious fanatic, a religious monomaniac.
Yeah.
No question about that. And did you know that he was raised in Goshen? The Goshen is the Hebrew word for the area of Avaris. Now, here's an incredible piece of information. The land of Goshen that the Israelites are always talking to, and modern Jews are referring to, and modern Christians understand that term Goshen, was actually an area of land in which was the seat of power of these Hyksos people that I'm telling you about. The Israelite pharaohs lived in a city that in Egypt is called Avaris, Avaris. But you know what the other name for that town was, or that city? Zion, Zion.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes, so there's just one dot connected.
Yeah.
So when you hear about modern Zionists, and when you hear about organizations, super steering committee, secret societies using that term, where you have people in France called the Prairie de Zion, we understand why they might be using these terms. We might understand why all of the major Jewish thinkers have always said that Freemasonry is Judaic.
Yeah.
And Jews go, oh, wonderful. No. They're not talking about you guys. They're not talking about good, honest, Torah-worshipping, Torah-following, moral, living Jews of the world.
Yeah.
No. They're talking about the Jews, the Egyptian Jews who followed Aton. That's what they're saying when Freemasonry. I've got so many quotes on the first astrotheology page from the top Jewish Zionist thinkers saying Freemason, lovingly saying, happily telling you, Uri Lina, the great Swedish scholar, in his book Architects of Deception, get that book. The man goes into the whole 9 yards of it, exposing the fact that Judaism is not a religious edifice, it is a political connection.
Yeah.
There's reasons why the Freemasonry is called a Jewish, falsely a Jewish religion. It's because these people are knowing about the Egyptian connection, that these Egyptian symbols go back to a pharaonic dynasty, and it's them whose light is at the top of the pyramid. It's their god, Aton, and it's their new world order that's being created. So you can see now why this work is so important, because it goes further than most of the researchers who've just been, sort of vaguely understanding what these symbols are all about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important, to get to the bottom of this.
Well, let me go on to finish with your question about why he got expelled.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
The thing is that I had to go into the background of showing who supported him, who brought him to power, and who brought his dynasty to power, was the Levitical. And they did use that term. They called themselves the Levites, the Zionists, the original Zionists, the Iberu, that's a misused name. They were really the Aperu. There's a difference. Aperu meant the shepherds, the invaders, the foreigners. So these foreign invaders who lived and ruled in Egypt for 300 years, who backed Akhenaton up, and who basically had the say of who went and who did what. They lionized Akhenaton. He was their boy. He was their king. Yeah. And they conspired to close down all of the ancient temples of Egypt that had been there for countless thousands of years. The temples of Osiris, the temples to Ptah, the temples to Maat, to Nuth, to Isis, to Nephthys, to Osiris, to Amun-Ra. And Amun-Ra was the most worshipped god after Aton. The supreme god of Egypt was Amun-Ra, and all the temples were dedicated to him. And along comes Aton and his coterie, who are non-Egyptian. These people despise the true Egypt.
Yeah.
And they decided to, impoverish the people, work them like slaves, and close down all of these temples. And of course, this was tolerated for several hundred years. Finally, the people of Egypt rose up, and it was the pharaoh Horemheb, who is technically considered the last pharaoh of the 18th